So this morning we're talking about caring for the weakest and the smallest of God's children in the world. And when you have three young boys in your house, one of your roles as parent is to play peacemaker and sometimes step in and care for the weakest and the smallest boy in your house. Our youngest, who is 4, Otto, occasionally finds himself at odds with his 2 older brothers, and they sometimes gang up on him, and we can tell when he's not just crying wolf about it, when he comes to us with tears in his eyes and he says, "The brothers are being mean to me." The brothers, he never talks about the brothers unless they are ganging up on him. The brothers are being mean to me. The brothers are playing with my toys. The brothers are beating up on me. The brothers are dangling by my feet outside my bedroom window, those kinds of things. And every time Otto refers to his brothers, we know that it is our turn to step in and on behalf of the smallest boy in our house, and to remind the brothers just what it means to be a brother. Now, brother, that word is, it's a really loaded word. It implies an important relationship. It implies a close relationship. It says that we come from the same source. When we have a brother, when we have a sister, we simply owe them something by virtue of being from the same individual, the same family. In fact, the Bible records the first human question is this one. The question is, am I my brother's keeper? First human question to God, am I my brother's keeper? In other words, the first thing a human being wanted to know from God was, what responsibility do I have to love and care and show grace to my fellow human beings, particularly those who are in need? And in Matthew 25, Jesus answers this question for us. We're told at the end of all history, Jesus is going to line people up on one side or the other, on his left hand and on his right hand, and he's going to ask one question. A question to which he already knows the answer. He's going to ask, what did you do for those in need? What did you do for the hungry? What did you do for the naked? What did you do for the thirsty, those who are in prison? What did you do for these, my brothers? And some will answer that they did do the job of caring for the weakest and the smallest, and Jesus will say to them, Matthew 25, verses 34 and 40, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. Truly I say to you, as you did it to the least of these my brothers, you did it also to me. And some others, when Jesus asks, what did you do for the weakest and the smallest, they'll look around nervously, and they'll dig at the dirt with their feet as they consider the kind of life they led. And Jesus will say to them, depart from me. As you did not do it to the least of these my brothers, you did not do it to me. Now, caring for the weakest and the smallest, what we learn here, not only impacts our relationship with them, it also impacts our relationship with our brother, Jesus Christ. As we love his brothers, those whom society has forgotten or neglects or even despises and judges, our love for our brother Jesus grows. Our connection with our brother Jesus grows. He builds something eternal in us that can never be taken away. So in this sermon series, we're talking about ways that we can grow our faith with Jesus. We grow our relationship with him using our hand as a reminder. 2 weeks ago, Sheldon, using his middle finger, talked about connecting with your strength daily, and through prayer and Bible study. Last week, using the ring finger, I talked about how we need to keep and cultivate important relationships in our life. And today, we're talking about our pinky finger, our smallest finger. That reminds us that how the Holy Spirit grows our faith through caring for the weakest and the smallest. So someone this morning might listen to the sermon so far and say, so this is about loving our neighbor and taking care of our brother. So they might say, so this sermon is about justice. It's a word we hear about a lot, justice. Well, that'd be wrong, but only partially. This sermon is about justice. Justice, biblically speaking, is the practice of creating right relationships between people. But the sermon primarily is about righteousness, because we cannot create right relationships between people, and we cannot foster justice unless we, through our own human work alone, unless our relationship is right with God. And we have to be right with God first. And the word for being right with God is righteousness. So justice is about right relationships with other people, but a right relationship with God is called righteousness. And justice flows from righteousness. Right relationships between people flow from a right relationship with our brother Jesus. That's where it all begins. Otherwise, you're just doing nice things for people. If you look at this in the light of the greatest commandment that Jesus gave us, you see the two sides reflected in caring for the weakest and the smallest. Matthew 19, you shall love the Lord God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus said, upon these two commandments, love God and love your neighbor, depend all the words of the law and the prophets. So in the long run, we will have much more to offer the weakest and the smallest if we seek to cultivate a right relationship with God first, rather than just doing nice things for people. Let me offer an illustration here. A lot of you know, if you read the evangel, you know that Sheldon and I went to the Covenant Order of Evangelical Presbyterians national meeting this week, a yearly meeting in sunny Southern California. It's tough work, but someone has to do it. This pastor work is difficult, it's arduous, it's challenging. We went to the beach and we ate Italian food at a sidewalk cafe. I had the best salad I've ever had, actually. Tell me about, or if you ask me about it, I will tell you about it. Sheldon's heard about it about 18 times. I kept telling him about that salad. We hung out with friends, and we attended a Presbyterian meeting, so it sort of balanced out. And there was a conference and wonderful speakers and good relationship building. And on the way back, we flew through Las Vegas. And as we were taking off, we were faced with a stark choice on the airplane. Out of one side of the airplane was the Las Vegas Strip. On the other side was a beautiful sunset. And you could look at one or the other, but you could not look at both. Now, both of these capture our attention. Both are worthy of being looked at. One is God-made, one is man-made. One has been there since the beginning of creation. One is a few years old. One will endure for all time. One is a few years. One will someday fall into ruins. Both at a distance, there is beauty and there is wonder. Both are impressive. But underneath, one is a sinful underbelly, rotten at its core. And we have a stark choice. We can try to love our neighbor by our own man-made strength. That's not without value. It's worth something, but it will not endure. Man-made love is not without beauty and wonder, but underneath, it is rotten to the core. Jesus' love is eternal. If we want to do for others something that lasts, that is important, that is transforming, that is life-changing, we'll do it not by our own character, but by the power of the Holy Spirit working through us, working in us. We won't do it by our own strength, but by Jesus' strength given to us. Jesus' love will inspire us, and it will motivate us to do things that endure. William Stringfellow, a Harlem lawyer who worked during the 1950s and 60s, put it this way. He said, the premise of most church work is that in order for the church to minister among the poor, the church has to be rich. It has to have specially trained personnel and huge funds and many facilities rummaged to distribute the whole battery of social services. Untrue. The church must trust the gospel enough to come among the poor with nothing to offer the poor except the gospel. When the church has the freedom itself to be the poor among the poor, it will know how to use what riches it has. It will know how to use what riches it has. The phrase for this kind of transforming love that addresses the body and the soul is coined by a Mississippi pastor who's part of the civil rights movement. His name is John Perkins. And the term is called whole gospel. Whole gospel. The whole gospel, Perkins said, is justice and righteousness. The whole gospel is working on a right relationship with Jesus and with each other. The whole gospel addresses body and soul, not one or the other. So what does this look like? What does it look like to offer the whole gospel? What does this look like to love not just righteousness, but to love justice? What does it look like to care for the weakest and the smallest in this more holistic way? Well, leading up to the vision at the end of all history, Jesus told two parables in Matthew 25. These two parables teach us how to care for the weakest and the smallest, not by our own strength, but with the power of the gospel. The first parable teaches us that we need to be prepared to meet Jesus. We need to be prepared to meet Jesus. Jesus, in the first parable he told, said the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who went out to meet their bridegroom at night. 5 were foolish and 5 were wise. The 5 foolish had lamps but no oil. And the 5 wise had oil and lamps ready to go. They were prepared. Well, the bridegroom was delayed in coming. He was delayed in coming. And so the 5 women who had no oil had to buy oil for their lamps. So they missed the bridegroom, and the door to the wedding banquet was shut, leaving them out. They were not ready. Jesus ended the parable saying we need to be ready for him to show up at any point. He said, "Watch therefore, for you neither know the day nor the hour." If we want to care for the weakest and the smallest, we have to make up our mind to do it beforehand. We have to be ready to go. We have to have our relationship with Jesus right. We have to make up our heart and our mind to be physically ready and spiritually ready to take that leap of helping someone in need. We need to be ready because there is always a good excuse not to help when the need is placed there in front of us. And we can easily convince ourselves that we're too busy, or it's too dangerous, or the folks that we're trying to help, they don't really deserve it. If I leave the decision to help until I'm presented with the need, I'll usually find a reason not to help. But if our heart is steady and our mind is ready beforehand, we will go out of our way to love our neighbor as ourselves. When I lived on the East Coast, I was in urban areas a lot. And there are a lot of folks in need, especially walking through Washington, D.C. And to get anywhere, I'd have to walk there, especially by dozens and dozens of people with their hands out, looking for help. And early on, I just sort of look down and pretend to not hear them or see them and do that whole thing. And then, just like everyone else did. And eventually this passage, Matthew 25, began to get to me. And then I would reach in my pocket and pull out $1 and place it in their hand. And sometimes I'd stop and pray, but even that was sporadic, especially when as a graduate student I had limited funds to be doing this kind of thing. So I began taking with me from the school cafeteria a couple extra apples or some extra oranges or a loaf of bread until I got caught doing that. But I would put it in my bag, and when someone on the street would ask me for something, I would hand them an apple or hand them a loaf of bread or hand them an orange, and I'd ask, "How can I pray for you today?" And an amazing thing happened. Rather than dreading that encounter with someone, rather than fearing that encounter with someone, I began to look forward to meeting someone on the street asking for help because I knew I had something to give them. I knew that I carried around something in me with me that they could use. And I know a lot of us have had this same experience with these homeless bags that we carry around in our car. You begin to look forward to seeing someone standing there that you can help. Remember what Jesus promised. Remember he promised. He said, when we do it to the least of these as brothers, we do it also to him. And here's how this helps us prepare. If I told you today, when you left here sometime this afternoon, you were going to run into Jesus. You're going to run into Jesus at the grocery store or the restaurant or the gym or the basketball court or standing at the corner of the off-ramp from the interstate holding a sign. How excited would you be? You wouldn't be able to sleep. Even during the sermon, you would not be able to sleep. And if I told you he was going to ask you for something, Jesus, you're going to meet Jesus, and he's going to ask you for something. He's going to want something from you. And here's what he's going to want. You'd make sure you had it right. You'd make sure you were prepared. Matthew 25 teaches us we need to be prepared to meet Jesus daily and in some really unexpected places, because we will find the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords and the maker of heaven and earth, the sovereign of the cosmos who spoke into darkness and created light. We'll find him side by side with the weakest and the smallest and the needy. He has made himself humanity's brother. So that's where he goes. The second parable in Matthew 25 teaches us we need to be prepared to risk and reap. Second parable in Matthew 25 is one that a lot of us know about a man going on a journey, and he left some money with 3 of his servants, each one according to his ability. 2 of the servants took the master's money and they invested it and they traded it and they doubled his money. And however, a 3rd servant took the master's money and he buried it in the ground, fearing that he might lose it if he used it. And when the master returned, he blessed and honored the 2 servants who traded his treasure, saying to them, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master." The 3rd servant who buried his master's treasure was cursed, and he was cast out, and he said, "Depart from me, you wicked servant." Here's what should challenge each of us here this morning as we hear this passage. Our strongest natural inclination with the gifts, with the time, with the talent, with the treasure, that our master places it in our life, is to do what the 3rd servant did. We want to save it. We want to bury it. We want to hoard it. We want to hang on to it and save it for a rainy day. We want to play it safe. We want to play the game to not to win, but to avoid losing. And this tends to be how we approach spending our master's treasure and caring for the weakest and the smallest. But the second parable clearly teaches us that Jesus wants us to take a leap of faith. He wants us to risk so we can reap. No one wants to hear that, of course. Most of us are not wired to risk. But to think of using our master's resources, using his time and using his talent and using his treasure that he places in our hands to serve the weakest and the smallest as a risk, to think of it in those terms as a risk, it misses one really important fact. When we serve the weakest, when we serve the smallest, because we love Jesus, we meet Jesus who is already there serving them. We're serving Jesus. Remember his promise. Truly I say to you, whatsoever you do to the least of these, my brothers, you do also to me. So let me be really clear here. There is a risk. There is a risk in serving in this way, but not the risk we think there is. Because our brother Jesus, he covers our bets. See, Jesus chooses that word brother so very, very carefully there. He doesn't throw it around idly. He chooses it very deliberately, implying that there is a relationship, a very important relationship, a close relationship, because we come from the same source, because we have the same Heavenly Father. When we have a brother, we owe them something simply by virtue of being who they are. One of the more remarkable stories this week at the convention the meeting, the eco meeting that we went to, is one of the pastors from one of the churches in our presbytery could not make it. He could not make it this week because he is giving a kidney to his sister. He's donating a kidney to his sister. All I'll say is I'm glad my sister does not need a kidney. That'd be a difficult choice. I would do it, of course, because I think I would. I'd pray about it. Yeah, I'd do it. I'd do it. But he's doing it because he's her brother. He's her brother. And he's really obligated, if he can do it, to do it. Well, Jesus has given you far more than a kidney because he's our brother. He's given his life. He's given everything for you and me. And so when we risk for Jesus, when we risk with Jesus, we don't risk in the same way we think we do. We risk giving up our wants, but our brother Jesus promises he will supply every need. We risk giving up some preconceived notions, but our brother Jesus will give us eyes and ears to hear the truth. We risk getting our hands dirty, but our brother Jesus promises he'll wash us as white as snow. We risk being rejected by men, but our brother Jesus, he'll receive us into his kingdom. We risk losing a sinful and broken world we can't keep, but our brother Jesus will give us the heart and the soul that we must have. We risk losing some comforts, but our brother Jesus is the great comforter. We risk nothing that God cannot provide and nothing that our brother Jesus will not freely give us. You see, we are our brother's keeper because our brother Jesus keeps us. We are our brother's keeper because our brother Jesus keeps us. So this morning what I want to do as we close here is want to give you an opportunity to meet your brother Jesus. Before we do that, I want you to see how you've already given to Jesus. We've been doing a hat and coat drive and want to ask the kids who've been a part of that, organizing that, to come down and just see what this church has given to this hat and coat drive for the homeless. So make your way down. We've had well over 400 items given for the homeless that you all have given. We just want you to see just the visible manifestation of that these kids have helped lead us in. You guys gonna pick this up afterward? Are you planning to do that? We want to keep the place clean, you know. It's a nice facility we have here. So as they're bringing that down, we want to show you some opportunities that we have for you to get involved. We have some folks who have clipboards here, and they would love to talk with you about how to sign up for some of these things. Where is Risha Flanagan? Risha, can you stand up? Risha would love to talk with you about opportunities to love the women and children of Grace United Community Ministries. Maybe you thought about being there, but you're intimidated to do it. Risha will help you get signed up. Matt Schaffner, where's Matt? He's up there. Matt's way up in the corner up there. He's hard to miss. There he is up there in the corner. Matt would love to talk with you about opportunities to get involved with Urban Farming Guys, about their share program of CSAs, the new greenhouse being built, or the maker space at Urban Farming Guys. And not all the work there is manual labor. Maybe God is calling you there here today. Ron Reno is under all the coats. Where's Ron? Ron's walking down the steps there. Ron would love to talk. Ron, put your hand up again so everyone can see you, please. Yeah, Ron Reno would like to talk with you about our homeless outreach team and how you could get involved there. And they go monthly downtown to feed and pray for the homeless in Kansas City. Maybe Jesus is calling you to be with them. So we keep bringing, so this is taking longer than I thought it would with all these coats. But you all do so much. We just want you to see just how these folks are going to be blessed through what you have already given. All right, thank you kids, and thanks for your leadership and helping us to care for the weakest and the smallest among us. Can we give these kids a round of applause? Remember, you are your brother's keeper because your brother Jesus keeps you. Sheldon, would you pray with us, please?